welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me today is Cort Winsett.
Always with you, Katie. Always.
And the king, Cameron Spann.
I was going to do my best Elvis impression, but it was not good. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are a podcast coming to you from Memphis. Yes, technically we are Collierville, but
It's basically Memphis.
It's Memphis. I mean, when somebody asks us where we're from, then it's always like, oh, yeah, I'm from Memphis. And then if they know the area, then we may say, oh, yeah, actually, Collierville, Germantown, stuff like that.
And for outsiders, Collierville's what, like 20, 25 miles from downtown Memphis? Probably 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20, 25, yeah.
So when people think about Memphis, they, depending on your background, a lot of people may go, okay, you know, Peabody, St. Jude, FedEx, things like that. But
Barbecue,
yes.
Yeah.
Get out of the way.
was having a
Get out of the way, Kansas City. It's us.
I was having a conversation with somebody last week up in Boston, and I said something about Memphis being known for Elvis, and unfortunately, lately, it seems like crime. Because, you know, I remember earlier this year, we were in a different country entirely, and Memphis was making the news in a different country entirely because of police brutality and some criminal activity that had been going on. But I was pleased when their reaction was, really, I don't think of Memphis as crime. I think of barbecue. And I was like,
Oh, good.
okay, well, good.
That's good to hear because I grew up in central Mississippi, not even really that close to Memphis. And it's just ever since I can remember been known for crime, which is sad.
There's so much more here. Don't be scared.
We're here.
Yep.
Don't be scared.
Okay, so Elvis is the other big thing.
Yes.
Most people, when you say Memphis, it's Elvis. And
Yeah.
it's like, usually followed by Graceland. And then that's the whole joke of people who are locals. How many times have you actually been to Graceland? And I think I was finally like 16 or 17 before I went the first time. And it was because I went with people from out of town. And then we actually did an event there. And that was only the second time I've ever been there.
That event was the first and only time I've been there. What
Yeah.
about you, Cort? Have you been?
I have been to Graceland, if you include like the entire property. I have been on the property. I have never taken the tour of the mansion or the plane or anything like that, but I have been to events that were held at their event center. I've been to the hotel across the street, so on and so forth, but I've never actually toured the mansion.
And that's the norm. I saw a post, I guess, last month. It was a Memphis-based account, and it's just like, real Memphians have never been to Graceland.
No, but if they have, they've just taken somebody. So this episode is going to launch right after or right in the middle of Death Week, I believe. Yes, that's something Memphians
It is a
talk
thing,
about.
yes.
You have Birth Week and you have Death Week, and it's a very big deal. You have to plan stuff around. So my anniversary is August 10th. And we were right at the beginning of Death Week. And really, it's something that, started and it used to be like a one-day thing. And now it bleeds into like the whole month almost. And so it really, like, I was in the heart of Death Week stuff. And so I kind of just fell into it and led into it. And, my welcome gifts for my guest had Elvis glasses and things like that. But the reason why Memphians need to really know about it is because our city gets flooded with people. There's activities left and right. There are Elvises just like randomly everywhere,
A lot of
especially downtown.
Europeans. Have y'all noticed that?
Yeah.
Europeans love Elvis.
100.
Well, I was doing a quick Google search the other day because my husband last minute was like, hey, you want to go somewhere for our anniversary? And I'm like, I've only been asking you for 6 months, but okay, yeah, I'll plan something real quick. So I Googled real quick, like, hey, best places to go in states in August. And Memphis was on that list. And I'm like, why? It's
August.
hot. It's miserable here. And I'm like, oh, Elvis.
Yeah.
Death Week has always seemed like a much bigger deal than Birth Week for me. And would you all agree with that?
Yeah, I think so.
I really honestly don't know. I know that one of our daughters, was born in the month of January. And I remember very specifically my wife wanting to be certain that she was not born on the date of Elvis's birthday. And she wasn't. But I remember that being a thing. I remember my wife was very much like, oh, just so long as she's not born on Elvis's birthday, that'll be... because she didn't want a bunch of people going like, oh, Elvis's birthday, every time we told them what our daughter's birthday was.
But I mean, even if that had happened now, she's in New York. Nobody's going to be like, oh, you were born on Elvis's birthday.
Well, that's true. So I do want to throw this out there. This is not our list, but I do just want to sort of, why on earth is a financial podcast talking about Elvis? Okay, well, Memphis top 5 financial drivers, economic drivers for Memphis are transportation and logistics, FedEx, healthcare, St. Jude, manufacturing,
all the warehouses,
also agriculture and agribusiness. Everything that has grown in a radius around us of I don't know how many hundreds of miles is pretty much shipped through Memphis, carried upriver or downriver on the Mississippi by barge, or flown out of here or trucked out of here. We have a relatively decent rail system that comes in and out through Memphis. So that transportation and logistics includes moving a lot of stuff. And of course, we used to be one of the cotton capitals of the country.
We have the cotton exchange here. And Memphis is in the Delta, a lot of crops.
Right.
The Delta goes from the steps of the Peabody to the riverboats of the Natchez.
And actually, number 4, if you were to rank the top 5 economic drivers, number 4 is what we're talking about today. And that would be tourism and hospitality. And that's, of course, driven mostly by our musical heritage. We do call ourselves home of the blues, the home of rock and roll, because, of course, Elvis Presley, king of rock and roll, recorded his first recording here at Sun Studios and lived here until the end of his life. Huge economic driver. Graceland and Elvis Presley Enterprises are huge economic drivers for Memphis. So whether you like him or not, whether you like the visitors or not, they have a huge economic impact.
Okay, so let's get into Elvis Week. We've got a list here of 5 of the king of rock and roll's greatest performances. Elvis has always been a huge deal in Memphis, but I think now across the globe it's gotten a lot bigger because of the release of the Elvis movie, and it's kind of getting some buzz again. But here's our list, and then we'll kind of talk about even more so of the financial and legal aspects of Elvis. Cort, why don't you start?
Okay. Not fair, because I was counting on getting my favorite of the Elvis things. And I'm interested, one of the things that's not on here, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure. Okay, so the first one is the Dorsey Brothers Stage Show, January 28th of 1956. In less than 5 months' time, he would be entrancing and enraging the entire nation. But when he appeared on an episode of the Dorsey Brothers Stage Show in January of 1956, Elvis was a relative unknown. He played through a medley of Shake, Rattle, and Roll, and Flip, Flop, and Fly, as well as I Got a Woman by Ray Charles, and apparently really made an impression.
The Milton Berle Show, that's June 5th, 1956. On the evening of this date, 40 million people tuned in to watch the latest edition of The Milton Berle Show, one of the most popular primetime programs in the U.S. I'm assuming it's kind of like a Johnny Carson, but earlier. It would be Elvis's second time performing in front of those cameras, but it was this one that, in the 60-odd years since, has been written into rock and roll folklore. Presley had ditched the 6th string in order to free himself up on stage. It was a fateful decision because as his band sauntered into a halftime groove during a rendition of Hound Dog, he began gyrating his pelvis in time to the music with his previously unseen lower half in scandalously clear view.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
He was dancing very provocatively. And
I love how that was portrayed in the Elvis Presley Baz Luhrmann movie.
I also love how it was portrayed in Forrest Gump.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the next on this list, the 68 Comeback Special, December 3rd, 1968. 2023 is the 55th anniversary. Okay.
I have watched this special multiple times. It's actually a really good special.
So at this time, he'd been drafted into the Army and once returned, launched a film career featuring in a string of limp movies. That was the thing, like musicians and stuff had those movies because like you had like Elvis with a ton of those movies and you had Marilyn doing a bunch of movies, but she was an actress that then would just sing for the president. He hadn't performed live in 7 years, and his music output was limited to awful soundtracks for those.
Matter of opinion that all of the soundtracks were awful. That's a bit of a statement, but go ahead. With
the sheer, so the Beatles now content with him, he could quite easily have faded into nothingness. Initially, the idea was for Presley to tackle a collection of Christmas songs. Thankfully, this was soon abandoned. Instead, they settled on a 50-minute special with the 33-year-old performing in the round while sitting down and alone in front of these famous red light bulbs arranged to spell out Elvis. It turned out to be arguably the finest performance of his career. And this was portrayed in the movie as well.
It was great.
Yeah, so pared down performance. This was Elvis basically, when you're performing in the round, obviously it gives you a sort of intimacy with your fans that you wouldn't necessarily have from a proscenium stage or so forth. So it feels very intimate when you're watching it. And it was just very pared down. Him, his guitar, leather jumpsuit, black leather jumpsuit. This was before his crazy jumpsuit days.
Women sitting and watching a man with his guitar.
Did I say that?
I mean, you said it was intimate, sitting around with him and his guitar. And all I could picture, spoiler alert, sorry, Barbie movie.
Oh.
I wouldn't know.
Well, there's a scene with men and their guitar and the women and...
Yeah. If you haven't seen it,
just go see it.
I enjoyed the movie.
Abby loved it. She really wants me to see it.
Yeah. Okay, so next on the list would sort of be kind of the opposite of his comeback special would be the Aloha from Hawaii. Probably one of his, if you think of an Elvis concert that you've seen on TV, seen clips of on TV, you've probably either seen the comeback special or Aloha from Hawaii. The jumpsuit, his most iconic jumpsuit for sure, he was wearing in Aloha from Hawaii. And this is when he really started bringing out the crazy jumpsuits covered with rhinestones and stuff like that. But anyway, made history in 1973 when he became the first solo artist to broadcast a live concert all around the world via satellite. It was a hefty undertaking with the whole endeavor, and this was in 1973, the whole endeavor costing $2.5 million. What is the future value of $2.5 million in today's dollars, Katie? That is close to $14.5 million. Sparkling in his studded white jumpsuit. Again, my feeling is that this is probably his most iconic jumpsuit, but whatever. What do I know? I'm not actually that huge of an Elvis fan. He was the consummate performer as he glided through the biggest hits of his career so far, as well as his favorite covers, including My Way and Johnny Be Good. It is widely and rightly regarded as one of Elvis's best ever concerts, a final apex before his life and career took a plunge.
What's wild is Hawaii had only been a state for 14 years when that was broadcast. I forget how...
It was still so new. It was just still a little baby.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, have you heard the whole people getting upset in Oppenheimer for the historical inaccuracy of the flags?
Yeah.
I'm like, who has time to sit there and count the stars on the flag in one scene, for goodness sake?
People who need to come see us and do their financial plan so we can give them something else to worry about.
Indeed.
Wrapping up our list of greatest Elvis performances was June 21st, 1977. That would be in Rapid City, South Dakota. What a booming metropolis. Presley was staggering through a tour he should never have been on. He was a picture of ill health. On stage, his face was puffy and profusely sweaty, and his one slick on stage chat had been reduced to a series of confused mutterings. Oh, this is not sounding great. Why is this on the list?
My word.
During one of the concerts in South Dakota, the 42-year-old introduced a song he had recently recorded, Unchained Melody, which is a great song.
Amazing.
As he shuffled over to the piano, wheezing into the microphone, he apologized in advance for forgetting the chords and tried to remember whether it had been released yet. Spoiler alert, it had not. It made for painful viewing, but what followed was extraordinary. Even as the rest of his body and mind failed him, his voice was irresistible, still so deeply heartfelt, still powerful. Less than 2 months later, he passed away.
It is such a tragic story, and I think the new movie was really, really good. I'm not a big Elvis fan, but I can appreciate what they did into the movie and how they really showed how he had a huge impact with integration, and that this movie, along with Blonde and Idol, there's a lot of shows coming out right now that is really shedding a light on stardom. And, we had that whole episode talking about Taylor Swift, that we all idolize and love these individuals, these musicians, these actors, and think that they have everything. And there are a lot of people taking advantage of them, pulling strings. And there was a scene in the Elvis movie that really struck me of how lonely it was. Because at the beginning, Graceland was so packed, so many people there. And then people kept filling his head, these people are not good for you. And then Graceland was empty. And it was just him and the Colonel pulling all the strings, telling him what they wanted him to be. And it was an abusive relationship. It was an abuse emotionally and medically and financially.
Yeah, stardom's not all it's cracked up to be. And since we're talking about Memphis, I would draw a parallel with our beloved Ja Morant. He's been in the wrong circle, I would say, with childhood friends. He's been flashing guns, getting in trouble with the NBA, and so they're bringing in Derrick Rose to be his babysitter. But you got to surround yourself with the right people and have your head on your shoulders correctly.
What was that phrase? Is like kids, they would say, you lay with dogs, you'll get fleas or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Anyone who lays down with dogs will come up with fleas.
Fleas.
Or if we're going to get biblical, iron sharpens iron.
Ugh. I hate that saying.
Why?
Mainly because there was a douchebag on one season of Survivor who used it.
Oh, no.
Frequently talking about his alliance with other people, and he was always like, iron sharpens iron. And I was like, okay, you need to be voted off immediately. Yeah. This was back when I watched Survivor.
I love Survivor.
Religiously.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
But I mean, give a shout out to Aaron, who we had several episodes ago, talking about there are people who can break the cycle and get out of bad situations and really change their life around. But so I think it's more awareness of people seeing. And obviously, you know, somebody like Elvis, you go from being a kid who's singing and just trying to enjoy and have fun to all of a sudden you blink and there it goes. We've done episodes where football stars and, you know, baseball stars, stuff like that, they get these huge signing bonuses. And then all of a sudden their cousins, their aunties, everybody shows up wanting all this money. And they feel so blessed that they've got this opportunity and don't realize they're all on their payroll. And they now are having to pay all these friends and family. And then when the stardom goes away, so do all those people.
It's not too dissimilar from Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun.
Yeah.
I'm always shocked when I'm reminded of the fact that he was only 42
So
when
young.
he died.
Yeah. August 16th, 1977.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I was very young, but I remember the news breaking when he died. I mean, so, you know, and of course at the time I was really, really young. You know, it was like, oh man, Elvis died. He was so old.
Was this before Diet Coke was invented?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Actually, indeed it was.
But I mean, I think that's one of those that you have these moments in your life that you remember where you were. And like Kennedy and
For
Elvis,
September 11th.
September 11th.
Challenger explosion.
Yeah. But so kind of the joke that people would always say is that he died on the toilet. Well, according to the internet, because, you know, it's all the truth, it was that he was found by his girlfriend, Ginger, who was a singer, found him unresponsive to the bathroom floor, home of Graceland. He was rushed to the hospital and was declared dead from cardiac arrest at 3:30 p.m.
You want to know? I mean, he really did die on the toilet. He had not pooped in, I think it was over a month.
All the medication and stuff they had him on.
So backed up. Of course, you're going to get ill.
Well, you
Can
know,
you imagine not pooping for that long?
Yeah, and actually it can kill you. An interesting thing, another very vivid memory I have, again, I was very, very young, was a commercial for the Inquirer. You know, Inquiring Minds Want to Know. It was a tabloid rag, in case y'all aren't familiar with it. But the specific commercial, they talked about how they had explosive news about what caused Elvis's death, and it was pills. And then the TV screen filled up with pills, like it you know, filled up from the bottom up to the top. And it was like this huge thing that, you know, shocking that Elvis Presley died because of drugs. And now it's like, oh, what up? I mean, you know, like everybody's like, yeah, well, of course drugs played a part in it, you know.
It's even worse than I said. So this is on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, drugs and a horrifically bad diet had led to him straining and struggling to defecate. In Presley's bowels, they found compacted poo that had been sitting in his bowel for 4 months, not 1 month, 4 months.
I tried so desperately hard to change the subject away from the compacted poo, but you just wanted to bring it back.
Yep.
But it's, I mean, because it's, I think forever people would be like, oh, this was Elvis Presley's doctor. This was Elvis Presley's whatever. Like around here, those were common phrases being said. And you think about Ozzy Osbourne. Like Ozzy was going downhill so fast and was so shaky. And then I think they ultimately figured out that maybe his doctor was giving him way too much of the wrong medication and it was actually causing his demise.
Same with Michael Jackson.
Back to Elvis Week. He passed away August 16th, 1977, as we talked about. His girlfriend Ginger found him. This is the 46th anniversary of Elvis's passing. It's a 9-day event. So that's where I talked about, like, it has really started stretching out and takes place from August 9th to the 17th at Graceland. And it's even more so outside of Graceland. It is all over downtown, everywhere you can find. There are pop-ups of Elvis tribute artist. Okay, you're probably going, why did she just say tribute artist so strongly? That has been ingrained in my brain. They are not impersonators. It is apparently extremely offensive to call them Elvis impersonators.
ETAs are a proud bunch.
Yeah. Although when you start, there's an article from Washington Post, and it talks about that professional Elvis impersonators, commonly known as Elvis tribute artists. Yeah, ETAs. So it's a big deal. They take it very seriously. They are everywhere, and they are from wide ranges. I know we have a client that is a big follower of Elvis tribute artists, and there's some as young as like 15 or so that go out there and sing and perform.
Yeah, shout out to Donnie Edwards. He's a tribute artist, I believe from Vegas. We've used him, I think, 4 times, flown him in.
Well, John Atkin, he was principal at Houston High and then superintendent for Carterville Schools. And he's 6'6", something like that. Has the whole Elvis jumpsuit, and he can sing. So he's a Elvis tribute artist.
We'd probably call him an impersonator.
He may be.
I guess tribute artists, they're paid for it. They are professional.
We do have another client that dresses up as Elvis as well and performs. I actually hired him for a bachelorette party once.
Oh, please tell.
The bride loved Elvis, and so we had this client. I was not working here at that point, so he wasn't my client when we did this, but he came out and performed. It was not like a sultry little like Elvis thing.
Okay, so he just performed. He didn't like perform.
No. It was just he sang. But okay, so back to Elvis Week. 9-day event, August 9th through the 17th, all over the city. Also, this year is a little bit different because we will also be celebrating the life of Lisa Marie Presley, who just recently passed. You've got Priscilla, and then Priscilla had Lisa Marie with Elvis. She passed away. I think they've now figured out hers was kind of like a malnutrition thing, too. She had a lot going on with her health-wise, and I mean, kind of a tragic situation, a lot like Elvis.
Yeah.
She was heartbroken because she had lost a child, and
I was going to say her son, who died, a year ago, 2 years ago, is buried there. So I think Death Week this year is going to hit a little bit harder for the Elvis fans.
Indeed.
So it's bringing tourists all over the world. There's a variety of events, concerts, tribute shows, exhibits, candlelight vigils.
It always, I don't know if it's the last thing, but I want to say it always ends with the candlelight vigil. So we all, as Memphians, you hear about on the news about the candlelight vigil because that area is that's when it is absolutely 100% packed with everybody who has come to town for Elvis Week is there for the candlelight vigil.
Did y'all see Lisa Marie's funeral? They had Alanis Morissette and Billy Corgan sing.
Nope, didn't see it.
It was cool.
She was married to some very interesting individuals in her life.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, let's backtrack there. It's not cool that she died. It's cool that they got those awesome performers to do a tribute for her.
See, everybody has a little Elvis story out there. My ballet technique and point teacher that I was with for 10 years, she taught Lisa Marie dance.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so she said she was not a very good. She did not play well with others and was not very mindful, and she
Katie,
wasn't in her class very
spreading
long.
stories.
I'm telling the stories.
Spilling some tea.
She's a little feisty thing, but often she would compare it to me too. She's like, "You're very feisty too. You remind me of Lisa Marie." I'm like, "Cool, that's fine."
Lisa Marie, Shiv, Beth.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley's estate.
My speciality. Not his estate specifically, but estates just generally. Yeah. So I guess probably most recently, the most interesting thing has been Elvis actually is one of the stars that passed away early that actually had an estate plan at the time of his passing, and assets were placed in trust. The most interesting thing that has come around recently in the news regarding his estate is the fact that Priscilla, the mother of Lisa Marie, has traditionally been one of the trustees of the trust. But at the passing of Lisa Marie, The entire trust now goes to the benefit of her daughter, and her daughter is now the trustee of the trust. And so
Daughter being, if you watch Daisy Jones,
Great show.
Yeah.
I have not watched this show. Interesting.
Her name is Riley Keough.
Keough. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah. If you speak her name phonetically, then it looks like Riley Keough. I didn't even know Lisa Marie was married to anybody or had a child with anybody with a last name of Keough.
Well, she was married to
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Cage, yeah. Apparently there was a Keough as well. Think about everything that Elvis left behind. Graceland, obviously, and that property and all of his assets have, as we've been discussing, turned into a major tourism attraction. And so all of the revenue that generates on a regular basis is part of his estate. It's revenue that goes into that trust and is used for the benefit of trust beneficiaries, obviously. Music rights, image and likeness, personal belongings, a lot of which are still on display in Graceland. And then, of course, his royalties for the music and his licensing fees and so forth. So,
because EPE was a big thing. Like, they controlled so much of it. Elvis Presley Enterprises controlled a ton of this stuff for a while. And I feel like since I've been aware of a lot of stuff, there's always been legal battles and conversations around Elvis's stuff on, is the plane going to be removed or not? Is Graceland going to shut down or not? And then it's just almost, and maybe it's around all these people passing away at different points, or I think there was a situation when there, this kind of goes back to your past life, when there bankruptcy issues at some point?
I mean, there could be. There are certainly times when Elvis Presley Enterprises has been not as profitable and has had financial struggles. They've done a lot to turn it around in the last decade or two. I don't know. Yeah. Again, I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on Elvis's estate or on the Elvis Presley Enterprises business operations. I am a Memphian, and as a Memphian, I am required, I think, by birthright not to care about anything related to Elvis.
Well, and I've always thought it was interesting because Priscilla has been, since Elvis has passed away, Priscilla has been huge involved with all this stuff. They were not married when he died. They had not been married for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so... But
he always loved her. I mean, like up until his death.
Well, and then he also loved Anne Margaret. I mean, that's a whole big scandal. So it's interesting that Priscilla, and I don't know anything about Priscilla. I know they're coming out with a Priscilla movie. The public always has one side of a story, but it was just interesting that they weren't married. He passed away, and then now Priscilla is like the front of everything. So Elvis had beneficiaries. His grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley. That's such a cute little name, Minnie Mae. His father, Vernon Presley, and his only child, Lisa Marie Presley. The division of the estate was to be divided into 3 trusts for Minnie Mae, Vernon, and Lisa Marie. The trusts were designated to provide for their health, education, maintenance, and support of these beneficiaries. That is a common thing for anybody when you hear this. Like, you know, we've talked about trust. It doesn't have to be for somebody who has Elvis Presley money. You can set up trust, and it's only to provide them for their health, education, maintenance, and support. So it's not for them to get rich and go and buy everybody a Maserati. But if you want to, then BullCast would love a Maserati.
Yes.
After the death of Vernon and Minnie Mae, their shares of the estate were divided between Lisa Marie Presley and her other relatives. So let's talk about the estate battles in 2023. In Cort, you kind of talked about this a little bit. In January 2023, Lisa Marie Presley died at the age of 54. She was the only child of Elvis Presley and Priscilla. Lisa Marie's will named her daughter Riley Keough.
Yeah.
Sorry if we're mispronouncing it out there. And Harper and Finley Lockwood. Those are her heirs. Mm. They would also name Priscilla Presley as the co-trustee on the estate. So Priscilla still is involved in all of this. And in February, Priscilla filed a petition in court challenging the validity of the 2016 amendment to Lisa Marie's will. The amendment removed Priscilla as co-trustee and named Riley as the sole trustee. And so Priscilla has argued that the amendment was invalid because Lisa Marie was not mentally competent when she signed it. This is always so icky because she's gone, and we're now fighting over her mental capacity. Back in 2016, she argued that the amendment was unfair to her and her grandchildren. And so this is hard to look at it as Priscilla's upset because she's been written out.
I am certainly jaded as far as estates and people bickering over the assets in an estate go. I mean, I've seen it too many times. But yeah, to me, it certainly seems like Priscilla basically is getting the boot. She's been in control of a lot of stuff for a long, long time. She was the mother of Lisa Marie, and Lisa Marie probably had some sort of power of appointment for the trust that was for her benefit. Either that or the trust just automatically went to her descendants after she passed away. But she had the ability through her will to appoint trustees over the trust that presumably was the same original trust that Elvis set up for her. And if she had that power, then, she appointed, probably what happened was, I'm just guessing here, back in 2016, her child, Riley, had probably reached the age of majority, if I'm guessing. And Lisa Marie said, okay, you're old enough to handle the trust by yourself, so we don't need to include grandma anymore. So I'll just make you the trustee, and you can handle your own affairs. You've got the maturity, whatever, you've got the knowledge, you can do it yourself. And may or may not have even told Priscilla that she did this. And so when it came time to actually put into effect what Lisa Marie had put in her will, Priscilla wanted to fight it. And, if I'm being completely honest, it smacks of sour grapes to me.
Cort, because you're our resident legal eagle, I have a question for you. When dealing with estates and the death of someone, would you say more often than not families get into that icky territory, that battle territory, or is that kind of an edge case? Just based off your experience.
The number of times that I have heard someone that I was counseling about their estate say to me, oh, my kids won't fight like that.
Famous last word.
Yeah. And the thing is, you never know. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get along perfectly well. I certainly would like to believe that, for instance, me and my siblings will get along fine when we're dealing with our parents' estate. Fortunately for us, our parents are both still alive. But eventually, I would like to think that we will all be able to get along and everything will go smoothly. But a lot of different factors play into how an estate goes and how the handling of an estate goes. For instance, one of the estates that our law firm is currently handling, a lot of the issue and a lot of the strife is coming from spouses who really have no claim to the estate whatsoever, but they're driving their spouse that is a beneficiary to make decisions that are probably unwise. So
yeah, I've dealt with that. I'm right now. I was helping somebody kind of run some numbers for a parent that is still alive, and they are trying to make sure the money that is there, are they spending it wisely to care for their father? And they kind of made one of them made a flippant joke because there's 3 siblings. Well, we need to make sure we document everything so that such and such doesn't come back and try and sue us when there's less money to be inherited at the end, which to me blew my mind. But money changes people. Money makes it where their claws come out. And you're right. It could be one of those, like, I'll use Abby, for example, because Abby is the sweetest soul in the world. She will never do this. But if there was a situation where something happened to your parents, Cam, and you found out you were inheriting, $100,000, and Abby's pushing like, I don't think that's right. You should have gotten more. You should. Yeah. Then that can be the pressure, because then it's kind of the manipulation. It starts going in your head, and then you go to your siblings and you're like, well, how much was actually spent? You chose to spend this much on mom and dad's care, and I didn't agree with that, so I should be entitled to more money. I mean, money changes people. It is absolutely crazy.
So you're saying like Elvis was manipulated by the colonel. These people that have access to an estate are manipulated by their spouse who have no blood rights.
Could be. I'm dealing with personally right now. It's, we've got farmland that has been in my mom's side of the family for a really, really, really long time. And we're wanting to set stuff up where it is only the direct descendants that can have something to do with it. And the spouses have nothing to do with it, because the more layers you go down, the more people that are disassociated from the core of something. It's all its protection. And to Cort's point, you never know. You're looking at somebody right now, but until you put somebody in a certain situation, you don't know how they're going to act and what side of them is going to show up, who they're going to be with. We kind of joked that a friend of mine, they put together a document, and they were moving into a house that had been in the family for a long time. And they created the crazy witch clause, we'll just call it that, that pretty much was saying that if the spouse decides to go crazy and money hungry or vindictive or whatever, no matter what, she cannot get in control of this house because this house had been in his family for so long and not hers to have possession of. And I oftentimes reference that of like, hey, this is a loving couple. They love each other. They're not planning on, ever separating. And she's not ever planning on going off the deep end and being crazy. But you protect yourself. Same with prenups. Like, yeah, it's somebody says it removes the love of it, but no, it doesn't. You're protecting yourself because as human beings, we adapt, we evolve, we change who we are. Different experiences change our opinions and outlooks on things. And so you're really just creating a legal document that protects you. Now, with Lisa Marie and Riley, the legal documents were there. It was black and white. It was, done appropriately. But she was going back questioning.
Lisa Marie was questioning so I'm trying to explain. I don't have all of the details because I haven't really followed the issues, but I said earlier, I think that this is the same trust that basically Elvis set up for Lisa Marie so many years ago. It's possible that she was able to set up her own trust and that assets that she received from the trust from Elvis Presley, she put into another trust. In one form or fashion or another, that 2016 was an amendment to her trust, whether it was the trust that Elvis set up and she had the authority to amend, or if she set up a new trust and she amended her new trust. 2016, she executed an amendment to her trust that established that Riley was going to be the sole trustee, and it removed Priscilla as co-trustee. And Priscilla basically claimed that amendment was fraudulent, that it wasn't actually signed by Lisa Marie, and that it didn't reflect Lisa Marie's estate planning wishes. But bottom line, Lisa Marie was Elvis's only child. She inherited a good portion of Elvis's estate. And when Elvis passed away, Priscilla was not married to Elvis, and Elvis did not have Priscilla in his estate. And all of that went to Lisa Marie. And then, of course, Lisa Marie is going to pass that along to her children, Riley. And Riley has two younger half-sisters that I think are not yet
twins,
of the age of majority. So Priscilla was basically saying, hey, Lisa Marie wanted me to be trustee over this, and, this is fraudulent. And Riley was like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is there was at least a legal document. So then Lisa Marie was able to, in her, even though she's not here to speak for herself, there was documents that were taken care of prior to her passing. Yeah. There are several situations we talk about with celebrities, with average Joes, that there's not the legal document. So it really is kind of left up to the courts, left up to really argument. With Lisa Marie's situation, Riley's lawyers argued that the amendment was valid and that Priscilla was not entitled to challenge it. They also argued that Priscilla was not acting in the best interest of the estate. Oh, best interest. So fiduciary, right? We've heard that term a lot around our podcast. But ultimately, in June of 2023, so just a couple months ago, Riley and Priscilla reached a settlement. So, I mean, think about this. This is grandmother and granddaughter fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are trying to grieve, as we talked about in our recently episode. They're trying to grieve about losing their daughter, their mother, and now it's all about money. And that makes me so sick when I think about that. And I've seen that where a wife will pass away, and then you've got the grieving spouse, and then you'll see the vultures. You'll see these other family members start latching on to that last individual, trying to then be like, oh, well, they've lost their spouse. I want to then be the beneficiary. I want to do this. Oh, it's cringy. It's real cringy. But granddaughter and grandmother made an agreement. They reached a settlement. Under the terms of the settlement, Riley will be the sole trustee of the estate, but Priscilla will receive an undisclosed amount of money and will be a special advisor to the trust. The settlement brought an end to the legal battle over the Elvis estate, and Riley is now going to be responsible for managing the estate and overseeing the care of Graceland. So to me, as an outsider, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about Priscilla because I don't understand the ins and outs of it, but it's almost like Priscilla maybe didn't have her financial plan in place of knowing that she was going to be able to be okay without trust money coming into her. And so now she's made an agreement that she's going to still be getting some income to her in some undisclosed amount. Maybe she has done a ton of stuff behind the scenes and that she doesn't think Riley can do it. I don't know. But she's still involved. Riley's running the show, but Priscilla's still a part of it all. So additional details about Elvis's estate. The estate was valued at $10 million when Elvis died in 1977. That's a lot in 1977.
Yeah.
Over 70% of the estate was paid in taxes and fees.
When you have an estate that size back in the 70s, this is back before we had the more generous exclusion amount that we have now. You know, I can remember even back in the 90s, I think, when the exclusion for estate tax purposes was only $400,000, and anything over $400,000 or maybe $600,000 was taxable. So that was when I was a teenager or early young adult. I don't know what the exclusion amount was back in the 70s, but I imagine it wasn't high. And so you could see an estate get eaten up by taxes and, of course, legal fees and so on and so forth. So 70%, yikes, but also makes sense. Now, since then, even with that fact, since then, the estate has generated like $1 billion. So since his death, it's certainly been. You know, you were talking about, was there a bankruptcy? I think there may have been some financial strife, but definitely it has been a major revenue generator for many, many years now.
Lisa Marie sold most of Elvis's trademark rights for over $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the main source of income for the estate is Graceland, which is one of the most popular tourist attractions in the United States.
Boom.
Graceland is the second most visited private home in the U.S. I mean, within that...
The Biltmore?
You've got Biltmore, you've got the White House, Monticello. I mean, it's among some great company. It's the second most visited private home. So that's wild.
Yeah.
I think it says 500,000 visitors per year.
There's obviously, I've only been there twice. I've only been in the house once, but they built the Graceland Hotel, and they constantly, I feel like, will unveil every so often new stuff that hadn't been seen, or they'll have private tours where there's different areas you can go to. But I mean, it is a sight to see. It is a very elaborate house in the sense of how it was decorated.
Jungle room.
Yeah. It's not a massive, which is kind of interesting because like the first time I saw the White House, and as a kid in your mind, you're sitting there thinking, this massive house in like this big green area around it. But it is smack dab in the middle of D.C. with all these other buildings around it. And it's not that big.
That was my thought. I was 10 when I went and visited it. And you walk through, it's like red room, blue room, green room. It's like smaller rooms than you would think.
Yeah. But that's the thing is it's still, you think about the times these houses were built, it's very impressive. We're just building way bigger houses nowadays. It's, Beyonce and all of them have much bigger houses than Graceland and the White House and stuff like that.
One of the TikTok accounts that I follow is called Celebrity Homes, and they just every now and then they'll throw up a video of an aerial shot of celebrity homes. Those places are just unbelievable.
They're complexes. They're not even houses.
It's amazing. It just absolutely shocks me.
But see, going back to then what we talked about with Elvis, do some of these celebrities have such massive houses, because they can afford it? And are they really empty because they can't trust a lot of people? Because they don't know who's pulling their strings. Just, I don't know. Stardom can be a very lonely world, I feel like. And
it certainly has been for me. I mean,
such a big star. But
yeah,
we're just honored to have you here. Thanks for every week recording with us, even though you're such a star.
I probably don't say it enough, guys, but you're welcome. You're welcome.
It means a lot.
Yeah.
So this has been a fun episode talking about Elvis, and I guess I'm going to kind of bullseye at this point. Hey, I called it out before I did it.
Hey,
look at you! Look at you!
Yeah, we're talking about Elvis Presley here, but it doesn't matter if you're, George Jones on the side of the road or wherever you are. Like, everybody needs to take control of your own life. You've worked hard. You've been a part of a family. You've been a part of an organization. You've been a part of different things. Make your estate plan documents. Make sure you have in place while you're alive what you want to happen when you're no longer here, and get your affairs in order.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's always going to be, I should have done it. Cort and I had to go visit the hospital recently to go get some power of attorney documents and will documents done for an individual who had us on their to-do list. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly a situation changed and they needed it fast. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we were able to get it done. Cort worked really hard getting all that together. But just don't wait, because then sometimes you don't have that emergency opportunity to still get it done. And it's better to think it out and really put thought into what it is versus having to rush and get something done, because then that's where there may be loopholes. There may be holes in your documents that somebody can go and argue. And yes, we want to all think that our families are not going to argue and fight over things, but money changes people.
Money changes everything.
Bullseye?
Bullseye.
My bullseye is to go out and see Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. I think it's a lot of fun. I can't speak to how accurate it is, but it's cool. If you've seen any Baz Luhrmann films, it's kind of like that. Moulin Rouge, Romeo and Juliet. It's got remixes of his songs. It's awesome. And then also go visit Graceland. Even Memphians, go visit it. Yeah, it's a little kitschy, but I thought it was a lot of fun to see the different rooms. It's like a throwback. I mean, it looks like it hasn't been touched in decades. So it's cool.
Okay, well, we're doing bullseyes this week, apparently. So my bullseye is going to be a little bit different. So let me see if I can phrase this in a way that'll give you a good little nugget where I'm not rambling for too much. So my bullseye is this. At the very top of the show, I listed off Memphis's top economic drivers. And I think as residents of the city, and frequently, as residents of a particular state, you've got to be conscious of where your livelihood and where your city and or state's prosperity is coming from, and be supportive of those things. So, like, for instance, obviously, FedEx is a huge driver for us. Graceland is a huge driver for us. St. Jude is a huge driver for us. We want to support those organizations, be proud of them to the extent that we can and should be proud of them, so on and so forth. They bring so much money into our city. And tourism supports lots of tourist industry related jobs. And so, it goes on and on and on in terms of just exactly how many Memphians those different things that we talked about can actually help make a living and live a life that they deserve. So it's worth being aware of what's in your state, what's in your city, what's driving your city's success, and who is it helping? Is it helping your fellow citizens of that city or state make a living and live a life? Just kind of be a good person and be knowledgeable about what's surrounding you, I guess.
Hashtag hometown pride.
Booyah. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing bell. You've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cameron, Katie, or Cort, please feel free to go to our website. That's bullcastpodcast.com. We've got bios, we've got a few pictures, we've got a spot where you can drop us a note, comment on our most recent episode, or drop a topic that you'd like to hear us talk about, or even if you'd like to have us have a guest on, we suggest that as well, and we will follow up. We have pictures on Instagram. That handle is at BullCast Podcast, and for at least the time being, we still have an X account, a Twitter account as it used to be called. That handle is at BullCast Podcast as well. We have a Facebook page that is BullCast the Podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, as we are so willing to remind you, we all three work for a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors, financial advisors. If you would like to find out more about what we do, what we can do for you, find out about our amazing team, and find out about our boss, David Pickler, then please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you everything that you need to know to come to Memphis and celebrate Elvis during Elvis's death week. So if you haven't already come here and are not listening to this podcast while you walk our city streets, then hurry up, get over here, and listen to some Elvis tunes. Otherwise, we might be lonesome tonight. I don't know. For now, I'm Cort.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam. Thank you. Thank you very much.